Fair warning, I'm about to get real mean. What's up, guys? Welcome to Earwax. It's Colin. And today, we're going to be doing a review of the brand new The Devil Wears Prada album, Flowers. And if this intro hasn't given it away, I am less than enthused. I try not to get super negative on my channel, despite what some people might think. I mean, I've given bad reviews. Anyone that does music reviews online, especially on fucking YouTube, is going to give a bad review here and there. But, generally, I'm only reviewing albums by bands that, I'm excited to listen to. And if I give a bad review, it generally means that, I objectively really didn't think it was that good of an album. It's pretty rare that I get personal with a review. And, it's hard as a critic, as an amateur, very amateur critic like I am, to come into any listening experience with a purely objective state of mind. That being said, it's pretty rare that I'm personally offended and upset by an album, and this has got to be one of those times. And I'm gonna just right off the bat say it's not fair for me to be as upset about this album as I am. Part of the reason that I've had a little bit to drink before this one is because it's going to be hard for me to say some of the things that I wrote down. These are my thoughts, my words, why I listen to this album. But the reason for that is I love the Devil Wears Prada. I've always loved them. They are arguably one of my favorite metalcore bands of all time. Starting from their early stuff, I absolutely adore them. They're one of the few pure Christian metalcore bands that I still really enjoy and can listen to despite their message. Which again, if you're, I got my start and love of metalcore in Christian music. I mean, I discovered metalcore at Spirit West Coast, so nothing against Christian music in general, but lyrically, it does take me out of it a little bit as an atheist. That it's just not something I can really latch onto and relate to anymore at this point in my life. But Dear Love, A Beautiful Discord, Plagues with Roots Above, Branches Below, three of my all-time absolute favorite metalcore albums in the history of the genre. And then outside of that, the original Zombie EP and even the follow-up, I adored. They're some of my absolute favorites. And so, to witness the shift in their style and paradigm over the past decade or so has been difficult for me, because more so than almost any other band that's made this shift in their sound, they've made me the most just sad, not even disappointed, not even upset, just sad. And when they did do Zombie 2, I was ecstatic because I was finally, they're giving us something heavy again. They're diving back into their roots, and I think they knocked it out of the park. Obviously, not quite as good as Zombie 1, as I think that is standalone some of the best metalcore that's ever been recorded, written, produced. But it was a damn good follow-up. It was heavy, it stayed on theme, it delivered on the promise, and I was really hoping that had marked a shift back into their classic sound. Clearly, that has not been the case. I mean, I know there are people out there that like the act. It's not for me. I was pretty disappointed when I first heard. I know they've been kind of moving in that softer, poppier direction for a while up, before that point. But the act really was the turning point where I was just oh, they're just this now. They're not even trying to be what they were. And that's fine. Bands evolved. Bands, change their sound. Bands grow as people. And while I didn't love the act, I knew there was a demographic for it out there. And they weren't the only band doing it. I mean, Bring Me the Horizon's done it. I See Stars has done it. There's Architects did it for a little bit. There's a lot of other bands in the scene that kind of made that poppier, more approachable shift in their music. But it wasn't for me. Then the next full-length LP, which was Color Decay, again, not necessarily my favorite, but there was moments on it that I did like, but I kind of was just all right, this is apparently the direction that they're going, and I just have to come to terms with that. And so when they announced this album, Flowers, I kind of expected them to still go down that route, but hopefully refine it a little bit, hopefully make it better, make it a little bit more palatable. And I don't think that this particular brand of like heavy metalcore, heavy pop rock, poppy metalcore, popcore, whatever the fuck you want to call it, is bad. I think there's bands that do it incredibly well. The last Beartooth album was fantastic in the Surface. Bill Murray in Eggy Pocket, and like even though the albums he's done since haven't quite reached that high, but like he's still at the top of his game. I love the Home Team, absolutely one of my favorites of the last few years. So this style can be done very well. Fortunately, though, what we got on Flowers is just some of the most soulless, generic, borderline feels like AI generated slop I've heard in such a long time. And it really does pain me to say this. I love the Devil Wears Prada. I love the guys in it so much. And I have not been this let down or disappointed by an album in such a long time. Now, I'm going to stop my rant here soon and get into the actual track review. But I do just want to say if you like this album, great. Like I'm glad you enjoy it. It very clearly was written and recorded to cater to like a mass appeal. In my opinion, in that process, lost every ounce of like soul and respectability. But that's besides the point. If you actually enjoyed this album, like keep enjoying it. Don't let my fucking words stop you from enjoying it. Probably stop watching this video now. Because again, like I said at the beginning, I'm about to get very mean with this. And I think that's probably because as a longtime fan who's seen them live a number of times, I took this one a little personally. I think there's albums that you expect to not like, or you go in with a certain expectation of like, this is not for me, this is not my scene, and that's okay. I can look at this from a more objective point of view. And then there's albums that you're really hoping, really wanting to be good. And then when you get something like this, you just feel absolutely broken because of it. And yeah, I mean, I don't go into like listening to a Miley Cyrus or Taylor Swift album expecting to love it. Like it's just not my style of music. That's fine. So I can look at it from a more objective point of view and be like, well, even though this isn't for me, this is done well, this is not done well, and create a objective opinion about it. But then I go into something like this, which is, you know, the first album in a few years from one of my favorite bands of all time, and hoping that they, even if it's not a return to form, give you something that's, you know, good and palatable. And then to be delivered something like this is just soul crushing. So, anyway, if you're still here at this point, thanks for listening to me rant. And without further ado, let's get into the track list. So the album opens up with The Same Place, which is basically just like an intro track. It's about a minute long. It's got some super cheesy, like voicemail robot vocals saying, "Oh, money isn't happiness," or "everything you ever want." I don't know. It's super fucking cheesy. It sounds like the start to any number of Jared Leto sci-fi films that are produced in the past 10 years that have absolutely no substance to them. And there's like some piano and orchestral strings that kind of back it up. But yeah, it's really just an intro piece to get into the first song of Where the Flowers Don't Grow, or Where the Flowers Never Grow. And this is probably like the least offensive song on the album. There's moments of it that do actually have some genuine like catchiness and some good songwriting and instrumentation kind of thrown in. It starts off with a very like generic synth pop intro, but then it does develop a little bit more substance as it goes through. The one of my biggest issues with this album, just in general, is the vocals. I think the vocal performances here are just not very good, but in this song, they are like tolerable. There's moments where like the guitar and the synths do sort of like meld well and have a little bit of harmonization going on. This reminds me, especially with some of like just the melodies of like early MySpace to mid MySpace era indie emo like pop in the veins of like the Medic Droid or Breathe Carolina, which I don't hate. I mean, there's a nostalgic part of me that still enjoys that part of my life, even though I now, as a grown adult, objectively realize it was not the best. But yeah, it never really comes to fruition. Even like the heavier parts of this song never get super heavy. The drums here fall very flat of being like, exciting in any sort of way. It's almost all tom and snare. The bass drum, if it's even being used, just defaults to a more standard like tom sound. And again, the guitar work here is just very muted. Even like the at the very end, there's like this breakdown outro that sort of hints at this still being a metalcore album, and it just really feels lacking. But I mean, compared to the majority of the album, like again, that's all fairly decent outcomes for what this is, because it's not awful. It's listenable, and it definitely doesn't make me want to gouge my ears out, which is more than I can say for like 70% of this album. Speaking of which, the second track of Everybody Knows is fucking awful. Like, the lyrics here are so goddamn cringy. The music here is so generic, so flat, so just soulless. The bass you can barely hear. It honestly feels like if you asked ChatGPT or any other AI engine to compile every popular mainstream alternative music style that exists, from fucking emo rap to like pop rock to pop core electronica, whatever the fuck Bring Me the Horizon is doing these days, whatever Following the First is doing these days, and just smash them all together and ask it to output what is the most like easily digestible song possible, this is what you would fucking get. It's the vocals are terrible. The duality between like the slightly auto-tuned or sounds auto-tuned clean vocals from their guitarist, and then Mike's like half-ass screams, it's just not good. Again, it feels like a watered-down version of Bring Me the Horizon, and even Bring Me the Horizon is a watered-down version of Bring Me the Horizon these days. So yeah, absolute skip. Never want to fucking listen to this song again in my life. After that is So Low, which, again, good God, like some of the worst fucking vocals I've ever heard. The half screams mixed with the clean singing are cringy at best and like offensive at worst. The bass here is completely soulless. The drums fall completely flat. The synth is boring. The guitar barely backs it up. And again, it literally just sounds like you're trying to appeal this to as many listeners as possible without actually like doing what you want to do. Like I struggle to find the passion in these first few songs because it's just so goddamn bad. If you like it, I'm sorry. Like, I don't mean to offend you. Music subjective. Listening taste is completely different between different people. But I honestly was personally offended by this song, and I hope to God that they do something different with the next album. But the progression of studio albums from the act to here does not give me an indication that that's ever going to happen again. Also, the attempt at a breakdown here is the weakest fucking thing I've heard in a long time. And as someone who like genuinely loves all types of metal music, I would want to kick these guys out of the scene at this point for their attempt at doing a fucking breakdown. After this is For You, which the vocals here are like borderline stadium country over like a generic fucking pop rock killers pop rock like backing instrumentation, and again, just soulless bass. Like, there's no feeling to anything that they're doing here. And I've listened to this album now like 4 times. I really didn't want to come into this review and like not have a established opinion on this music, because I think my first couple listens through, I was just so emotionally upset by it that I had to like take a few hours break and then come back into it. But yeah, I honestly can't explain why they approached the album and this song in particular too in For You. It feels so just like forced and overproduced and somehow simultaneously overproduced and like terribly mixed. Because did they even fucking mic the bass drum here? Like the drumming is awful. It feels muted. It feels waterlogged. The guitar work is non-existent behind like the synths and the piano. And yeah, I just really struggle to understand the reasoning behind not just the songwriting here, but like the mix in particular. After that, though, is All Out, which I do find myself wanting to like. Like, I clearly, this was the one song where they were like, okay, we can still do metalcore and we can throw in some thrash licks and we can, prove to people that we can still do this. Like, Zombie 2 wasn't less than, a decade ago, and clearly they can still do this if they want to. But yeah, there's moments on the song that I do genuinely like. I think the screams are almost good. Again, clearly still losing some of the passion, some of the emotion, some of the intensity that like he used to bring. The guitar work here is very well done. The drums are interesting. They're intricate. They're quicker. They're bringing something different than the rest of the album. And like the first time I heard this song, I was like, oh, good. Finally, there's something on this album that I can actually really enjoy. But unfortunately, it just falls a little flat. Like it feels like this song is brought right up to the finish line and doesn't actually like cross it. Because while there are moments where you can see the band that they used to be, there's never a moment where they actually show you that they are still that band. And again, I'm not disparaging like change and changing your genre and doing something different. But if you're gonna do it, you gotta do it well. And this album just isn't done well. The breakdown here, even it feels like it's so close to being good, and it's missing something. Whether that's a heavier bass, whether that's a better fucking chug, whether that's brutaler screams, like it's right there, but doesn't quite get there. And yeah, I mean, as much as I want to enjoy this song, and I think like if I heard it on like a Spotify radio come up, I wouldn't turn it off. It's definitely not one that's worth like coming back to. After that is Ritual, which again, like the vocals fall a little flat for me here. This really gives me like heavy Hello Fascination, like second album of Breathe Carolina vibes, which is not a compliment. I love me some early era Breathe Carolina, but it's more like nostalgia's fact than anything else. I probably would have been really into this song when I was 16, but thankfully my musical tastes and opinions and wants have grown in the past 17, 18 years. And yeah, I honestly just like, I don't know. At least they did kind of commit on this one. Like I do feel like ironically, even though I don't enjoy it, this might be one of the best breakdowns on the album because they actually committed and leaned into the weird like electronic core vibe they're kind of going with, even though everything is overlaid with just like this intense pop mentality. But at least on this one, it's a little bit different than every other fucking breakdown we've gotten on this album up until this point. And yeah, I think that like as much as this song wants to be something else, at its core, it does at least commit to being like a straight up pop track. And I do appreciate the maybe unintentional honesty in that. And then we get When You're Gone. And When You're Gone is probably the track that makes me the angriest on this entire album because it honest to God has the best riff that they've done on the album. Like the guitar fucking riffs on this song are killer. And I could see it being so good. But then they mute it by just throwing in a more generic fucking pop rock verses, more soulless fucking overproduced vocals, and the sickest riff they've done is then demoted to just like a backing track to more awful fucking vocal work and bland drum work and just muted fucking flat bass work and to take like one of the few shining moments on this album and then bury it under a lot of mediocrity is unacceptable. And I am upset that they did not make this song what it fucking could have been. And then it has the audacity to move into what could be an actually like pretty good breakdown, but to intro it with this weird yell, half scream, fucking god awful like vocal bit going into it. And I wanted to honestly blow my goddamn brains out through listening through that part by like my fourth listen. And to do that into what could have been an actually like decent breakdown is just inexcusable. Then you have this guy Behind the Rain, which is another just transition track. It's a intro or like mid, transition track from the first part to the second half of the album. More weird, cringy, sort of like recorded vocals and some weird generic breakbeat like electronic parts. I mean, if you're going to do something like this, like have it have meaning, and this didn't feel like it did. But you know what? At least it was a welcome break from the intense mediocrity of the remainder of the instrumentation on this album. But that does lead into surprisingly one of my I'm not going to say favorite, but one of the tracks that I actually did find myself enjoying in the silence. Because at least they fully committed at this point. This is like, straight up just pop rock. Reminds me of like some later era Fall Out Boy mixed with some more synth driven killer stuff, with a more edgy alternative like twist to it. But again, at least they're not pretending that's not what they're doing here. And I got to admit, I did find myself like tapping my foot along and kind of grooving to this track. It's catchy, it's fun. And I think that I wouldn't mind if they did more of this or like committed more to this, just under a different name. Like there's nothing wrong about doing a fucking side project or a side album and changing up your genre. And I actually like, I think this is a pretty catchy, fun song. And I think that it's helped along by the fact that they're not trying to pretend it's anything but this, which a lot of these songs are. But yeah, it's fun. It was a nice sort of like bright spot on an otherwise dim listening experience. Then we get into the last few songs, starting with Eyes, and I gotta say, it's a lot easier to listen to Christian music as someone with my experience and my beliefs when you can't necessarily understand the lyrics. And good God, are these lyrics just super, super cringy. And if you're all about this movement and this style of music, I'm sure you're gonna enjoy them. But yeah, this one was tough to sit through. The guitars here again feel just very weak, like almost a whisper against the synths and sort of like vocal melodies. The vocals here are lyrical content aside, just absolutely terrible. The drums and bass do actually have a little bit more momentum and feeling than a lot of the rest of the album, and I'll give them that for sure. But yeah, outside of that, again, the vocals just the slight like auto tune of the clean vocals, or at least that's how it comes off, mixed with the awful, terrible half-ass screams, is just so hard to listen to. And again, as a long time old school admirer, obsessive almost of this band, it's really hard to stomach. Then you get into Curse Me, which is more of the same. For the sake of my mental health, I'm not going to go too deep into this one. Listen to my review of the last fucking 8 songs on the album, because it's more of the same bullshit. But then you get into Wave, and Wave, while I don't like or think is a good song, I do at least appreciate that they kind of committed to the slow, melancholy, woe is me emotional ballad. The lyrics here are fucking hilarious. Like it's a metaphor. It's not a metaphor. It's a wave. It's a physical wave, but then it's also a wave of emotion. Like, just is it 2020? I don't know. It's not good. But at least, like, you know, not having production, just committing to the bit here, I got to at least respect their attempt to do whatever the fuck this is correctly, because so much of this album is just an awful, like, forcible mash of two genres where neither of them are done particularly well. Then we end with My Paradise, which, you know, if you've watched enough of my reviews, you know how much importance I put on the closing song, on a listening experience for an album. You have to come in strong. And to their credit for what this album was, this was a good closing song because it encompassed all the themes they've done before, didn't necessarily overshadow any of the other moments. And it basically said, like, hey, did you like the last 12 to 13 songs? Here's one more with all of them kind of combined. And sure, if you liked this, if you enjoyed it, you're going to enjoy the closing song. It's going to be a nice little way to tie a bow on whatever the fuck this experience was. So yeah, clearly, if you haven't picked it up by now, I did not like this album. I I don't know, like, it's hard for me again to, like, give an objective review of this album because I wanted so badly for this to be good. And if you like it, again, like, I don't listen to me, call me a fucking idiot in the comments. I don't really care at this point, but like, I generally do acknowledge that I judge and assign grades a lot more harshly to bands that I love and albums that I'm hoping are good. You know, one of the first reviews I ever did was the most recent or last Glass Animals album that I really wanted to be good, and I gave it a D because I even have just objectively thought it was fucking awful. And this one I'm gonna have to give the same grade, so I'm giving this a D as well. Not quite an F because it's, I think, still listenable at certain parts. There's certain songs that I think are fun. To get an F for me, you have to be literally the worst piece of shit that's ever been recorded, and I don't think this is quite that. But for me personally, this was a very difficult listening experience. And God, I mean, you know what? If they're having fun doing what they're doing, more power to them. I'm sure there's going to be people out there that like this album. I'm sure there's going to be people that resonate with this style. I'm sure there's going to be people out there that can ignore all of the glaring fucking production and mixing issues with this album and still have a good time. But yeah, I hope I never have to hear this steaming pile of shit ever again. So it's gonna be a D for me. Tell me how much of an asshole I am in the comments. But if you are still watching at this point, thank you so much for being here. Got a lot of fun stuff coming out. We're going to finish out the years ending in 2 for my best of any given year. I got a new Patreon request video coming. I'm going to be doing a review of the, not the last, but I think second to last Florence the Machine album. Got some fun end of the year list coming. I'm going to do my best of 2025. I'm going to do my worst of 2025. Spoiler alert, this will probably be on it, but yeah, keep an eye out for all of that. Check out my Patreon. I've got some exclusive videos up there. Any amount you can donate, you can send, really helps me out. It allows me to continue doing giveaways. I will do one more giveaway before the end of the year, so keep an eye out for that. And as always, guys, thanks so much for watching. I appreciate you listening to me rant like a lunatic for the past 20 minutes or so. And, you know, thanks again. Take care. Peace.